Talking of sparking interest, we're going to hear from Darren Brown, who's going to talk to us about energy storage and the key to accelerating decarbonisation. Darren, all yours. We're going to try and keep to 10 minutes for each speaker. Any longer than 10 minutes, shepherd's crook.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Darren Brown, head of GivEnergy Commercial. We, as GivEnergy Group, we produce battery storage and energy management solutions. A little bit of background about myself. I am an electrician by trade, historically, and back in 2009, I actually was part of fitting my first solar install, which was all very new. Solar PV panels on a roof, finding all these different components that nobody had ever seen before, and getting them all up and running for the client. Moved forward a few years, 2011 was actually the first battery install that I did. And that was a very different battery to what we have available now, so what GivEnergy are producing. I think my part of reducing carbon and net zero is helping people to purchase these solutions and helping them understand what solutions are best suited for their requirements. GivEnergy produce battery storage predominantly, and that can range from something very small for a small little flat or house, and it can go all the way through to an office building. It can be industrial warehousing, farms, NHS hospitals, police stations, and everything in between. So generation alone isn't enough. We have quite a large amount of generation available to us in the UK, a combination of solar, wind and hydropower are the sort of true renewable sources, with biomass in there as well. 40% of the UK's energy in 2022 was produced by these renewable sources. However, we can end up in a situation where the generation does not match the demand on the grid. There are lots of circumstances where the generation has been in an over-generating state, and unfortunately, with the lack of storage attached to the grid at the minute, some of that energy is wasted and ultimately is literally grounded to earth and just lost. Once lost, it cannot be got back, it has to be generated again. So to get serious about decarbonisation, and especially with electricity in mind, we really need to have a network of generation and a network of storage to ensure that we can meet our demands at any time of day, not just in the day when the sun is available for solar PV, not just when it's windy in the case of wind. So what can a battery do, and what is the impact of energy storage? So one of the key things a battery can do is to flatten out demand during peak hours. Now this can be at a single property level, it could be at a single site level or factory, it could be at a utility grid scale. All of these can support reducing the peaks on the grid, and following on from what Kevin is doing, we are quite rightly going towards a electrification of heat and an electrification of travel, but that actually increases the electrical demand of the grid. In some circumstances, the grid is actually struggling, especially in large city centres. I know we've done a lot of work with Belfast NHS Trust, and the grid network in Belfast is really struggling. It's under a lot of strain. So storing energy when it's in excess, so solar, wind, hydro, and any other source, storing that excess energy up and then distributing it later on can have a great effect on ensuring the peaks are kept away from the actual grid. And that then also helps avoid running the coal power plants or the other fossil fuel sources, gas power plants. A lot of these plants, when we have good amounts of wind and during the summer when the PV is available at large levels, these plants are not running, they're in a standby status, and they come on to meet the peak demands. Historically, that's been at the end of the football match. I know at the end of EastEnders and Coronation Street, in the adverts, the coal power plants have to ramp up to prepare for people switching their kettle on, cooking their dinner, and anything else. So having this distributed battery network, a combination of large grid-scale batteries and many, many smaller domestic and residential batteries, really helps flatten out that grid demand, reducing the need for the fossil fuels. It also helps the grid to be more reliable. So if you have a massive peak of demand, we have lots of large EV charging infrastructures going in at the minute. We have been part of trying to support some of these solar carports at local council car parks, providing a battery storage solution. The solar is fantastic at generating enough electricity to charge the cars during the day. It is not so good at doing it in twilight and overnight. So having a battery storage solution on these systems enables them to provide the power for the cars, for the people to charge their EVs, and doesn't have a massive strain on the grid. Putting peaks on the grid can cause it to break ultimately, and that is clearly something we need to avoid. It also allows for maintenance and planned shutdowns. Having these large utility-scale battery storage solutions working alongside generation enables the grid to be shut down, whether that is through a fault or through planned maintenance. Having the distributed generation around the UK and the world allows us to manage that process a lot easier. So what are GivEnergy doing about this, and what are we doing? So we are already providing these solutions. We're currently the UK's best-selling battery storage system. We're probably known more for our domestic and residential solutions, but we do also offer the commercial offering as well. Now, the domestic and residential solution can apply to a private client who purchase it themselves, and probably a lot of the time a financial payback period is the most important part to them. The payback period on a battery system alone can be as little as 3 years in some circumstances. That also comes with the benefit of reduction in their energy usage and also carbon usage as well. On the larger scale, it can also be residential in social housing stock. So if you're part of a local council, introducing energy storage into a social housing stock can greatly help reduce energy bills for those who need that financial support the most, but again, reducing your overall consumption of electric and ultimately carbon. We've currently got about 100 people working in the UK. I was number 12, so we've grown quite quickly since I joined in 2021. And we're all working towards the goal of empowering energy freedom for all. We do also have operations over in Europe and startups in Australia and South Africa. So we really are trying to provide energy storage solutions to the whole world, not just the UK. As you just heard, I was employee number 12, and we've really rapidly grown in the last couple of years. The sales have seen an increase in 500% from 21-22 up to 22-23. And we've really seen a huge demand in energy storage solutions over the last couple of years. To put that into perspective, there's over 500 systems a week being installed. That's a variation of private residential and the larger commercial systems. And that's helping save 2,500 tonnes of CO2 each day. Currently, we are, as far as we're aware, the only global battery manufacturer which has a UK software development and data management team. So you may think, why is that important? So we've all been very aware of the issue with gas in Russia and the conflicts that can cause issues with the supply of energy. One of the things that we really need to concentrate on is our energy security. A lot of these energy storage products are manufactured elsewhere on the globe, and with that in mind, most of the data and the control of these solutions are actually then linked back to the manufacturing country. What we have done is we have covenanted these data into the UK, so all of the software, all of the data storage, all of the engineers that are writing the real hard code that the inverters and everything work on is all in the UK. That means it's all managed from the UK, supported from the UK, and controlled by the UK. If there was ever a conflict with any other nation, you could actually sort of semi-weaponise that data. That could be from understanding the usage in a governmental building or a military facility to understand when they're on site. That would enable that to become a target. But also the control of the systems. If the control of the systems can often be linked and turn everything on at mass, potentially, the risk is there. So if that data and that control is away from the UK, there is a high risk they could do something malicious with that control, potentially turning on every single battery to charge or discharge, which then loops back to breaking the grid, causing mass power outages. So having that data in the UK, managed by the UK, controlled by the UK, is super critical, and that's one of our really key concepts in ensuring we're doing the right thing. So in terms of the projects that we are currently delivering, as I say, we're delivering over 500 systems a week now. There's 500 systems a week being installed. Many of them are the smaller residential solutions, and that is a mixture of private sales, private purchases, and also the social housing stock. We've just recently got one project comprising of 25,000 social housing properties, a mixture of flats and apartments, and that will help, as I say, reduce the energy usage for each of them tenants or owners, and obviously reduce the carbon usage of them properties as well. Commercially, we have a big mixture of solutions. So working with the NHS in Belfast, we have some backup solutions, so we can actually provide backup to the whole critical infrastructure of a hospital to keep the lights on and keep everything up and running during a grid failure. The commercial solutions offer other systems as well, so grid services. You can actually get paid for discharging your battery at certain times when the grid is in need of extra electricity. There are some quite profitable models available with aggregators and resellers that anybody can sign up to on any scale of the battery. That's really important. You don't have to have a huge battery to be able to benefit from the aggregation services. Also, we have things like farms, we have hotels, restaurants, police stations, ambulance stations, all mainly using their renewable energy to provide their green supply of electricity to their own buildings, and then, also in some circumstances providing backup and grid services. So just to summarise a little bit, I'll keep it nice and short for you. Each home fitted with a battery storage solution can actually save up to 300 kilograms of carbon per annum, and obviously reduce the grid pressure on the grid. Battery storage is a cornerstone of achieving our net zero targets, working alongside renewable energy sources. Obviously, battery storage, it's important to understand it's available on all scales. It doesn't have to be a large solar farm or battery farm. It can also be a smaller domestic solution. GivEnergy customers have saved over 30,000 tonnes of CO2, and that's roughly the equivalent of charging 3.5 billion phones from empty to full. Data security is critical, and that's one of the things we have in place, and we are the top energy storage provider in the UK currently. We have a stand just behind the wall here. Please feel free to come and see us. Thank you very much.